There was a time when the word ally carried more weight than just a treaty signature. It implied strength, unity, shared burdens, and mutual defense. But over the past 3 decades, as the Cold War melted into memory and the global order reshuffled beneath a haze of complacency, the strength of those alliances, particularly within NATO, faltered. The United States stood tall. But too often, it stood alone. And while ink on paper still affirmed the Atlantic bond, in reality, the balance was dangerously lopsided. America bore the weight. America supplied the muscle. America stood guard while others enjoyed the peace dividend. The transatlantic alliance, while noble in principle, had become hollow in practice. Winston Churchill, ever the realist in a world of dreamers, once warned, "There is only one thing worse than fighting with allies, and that is fighting without them." For much of the post-Cold War era, the US risked doing exactly that, fighting without them, or fighting for them, while they stood by in noble gratitude and polite applause. Europe's militaries had, over time, degraded, not just in size, but in will. Budget cuts, social priorities, and an enduring illusion that the American shield would always be enough led to atrophy. Collectively, Europe's ability to defend itself had become a shadow of its Cold War strength. That was the unspoken truth, until Donald Trump said it out loud. From podiums in Brussels to rallies in Ohio, President Trump shattered the illusion. He called it what it was: unfair, unsustainable, and dangerous. He faced criticism. He was told diplomacy demanded subtlety. But Trump did not whisper what history required him to shout. He demanded NATO allies pay their fair share. He demanded readiness, not rhetoric. He demanded that allies match their commitments with contributions. For years, the response was tepid. Pledges, yes. Results, no. Leaders nodded, budgets stalled, and the American taxpayer continued footing the bill for Europe's peace and stability. But a decade later, under the looming shadow of Russian aggression, Middle Eastern instability, and the rise of global authoritarianism, the Allies have finally answered the call. This year, NATO members made a historic commitment to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. 5%. Not long ago, even 2% was seen as aspirational, even controversial. Now, 5% is the new benchmark of seriousness, responsibility, and shared sacrifice. This is not merely a number. It is a statement, a resurrection of purpose, a return to realism. It says to the world, NATO is not a paper alliance. It is a steel-bound covenant. It says to aggressors, we will not be caught sleeping. It says to the United States, you are not alone. Because when threats rise, when tyrants rattle their sabers, when peace is once again on the brink, words are not enough. Defense is not a slogan. It is a budget. It is training. It is logistics. It is deterrence. And now, it is finally becoming a shared burden once more. We must recognize the moment for what it is. The 5% commitment is not just the fulfillment of a Trump-era demand, it is the embodiment of a broader strategic awakening. It reflects not only fairness, but wisdom. Because alliances, like any relationship, thrive on reciprocity. Not charity, not guilt, but mutual investment. And let us be clear, this shift did not emerge from the polite tones of think tanks or the whispers of diplomats. It was pressure, clear, unrelenting, and public, that forged it. Trump did not destroy NATO. He did what others feared: he jolted it back to life. Now, for the first time in a generation, NATO is becoming more than a memory of past glories. It is becoming a force again. Europe is rearming, not to provoke, but to prevent. Not to dominate, but to deter. And America can now walk into the next chapter of global defense with partners who no longer ride in the back, but sit shoulder to shoulder. This is what true alliance looks like. Not unity in words, but unity in readiness. Not dependence, but cooperation. Not one nation carrying the burden of the world, but many nations, stepping up, side by side. It took candor. It took confrontation. It took the courage to be unpopular. But history doesn't reward politeness. It rewards results. And now, NATO is stronger. Not because the threats have lessened, but because the allies have risen. 5% is not just a number. It's a new era.